All right, y'all. Welcome back and happy Friday. Today we're going to be breaking down Tennessee's final official visit weekend. It's huge because most of these players will be choosing their program after this weekend. I think Tennessee's in a really, really good spot. Obviously, we'll be talking about all the players coming up. We'll at least look at them. And we're going to be talking about my personal key players. I also want to talk about Faizon Brandon's last day at the Elite 11 camp, how he looked. We're going to show y'all some clips and talk about what some of the so-called experts had to say about his game. And also, want to show y'all how the NIL has looked for a couple of SEC teams and what it could possibly mean for this final week of OVs, how Tennessee might finish with this class, and also moving forward with the transfer portal. There's something going on that's called front loading, and I think that it definitely pertains to all schools in the country. As always, y'all, please do us a very big favor. Make sure to like and subscribe to the channel. Also, we do have the 2025 very early preview of Florida up on our Patreon for everybody. Okay, you can go and watch that 100% free at patreon.com/Bluechip Breakdown. So let's go ahead and get started. Let's talk about all the players that will be up. I think it's a total of like 17 guys. If you see orange, it means that they're already part of this class. Green means I feel like Tennessee's in a great spot with them. Top one for most of them, top two, and maybe one of those situations, one or two of those situations. But I think that everything that Tennessee's looking for, as far as what do we need that's still left, Tennessee's going to have a little bit of that coming up on this OV. So this is my first part of it. This is just everybody, but this is showing you who the key players are for me. And the list that we just looked at with everyone, that list changed since Monday, but this one hasn't changed, which is a great sign. It means that Tennessee's doing a good job of making sure that we're bringing up the players that at least I think that we really, really need in this class. So it's going to be a huge OV weekend. I want to start off, obviously, with Savion Hiter. Y'all can see him right here. He's the headliner. He's all the way down. Actually, where is Savion? Oh, yeah, there he is. All right, so he's third from the bottom. And right now it's us and it's Michigan. And as I've said, I think Tennessee's probably the team to beat. I feel very good about it. Listening to what some of the insiders have said, this one it might not 100% just be about NIL. Obviously, for players like this, the NIL packages, the revenue sharing packages, is going to be very, very similar. And, I think that it's going to be more about how does he fit into our scheme? How does he feel with the coaches? Is he comfortable with them? Is he comfortable with the players and things like that? But I would just say that with Tennessee's scheme, yes, it's not necessarily super NFL friendly, but we have put running backs in the league. They've done a good job. He's definitely going to get there. We never had a player as highly rated as Savion Hiter. I've talked about his skill set. He's a tall guy. He could probably carry 220, 230 pounds without losing a step. If anything, he might gain a step. Really good straight line speed. He can make you miss. Very sudden, good balance. Runs through contact. Runs good routes. Is a very natural pass catcher. Understands football well. Picks up blocks. Everything that you want, literally. Like, that's why he's the number one running back on, I think, every single site. But either way, with his skill set, he should know that it doesn't too much matter where he goes. He will end up, I think, going on to the next level. Now, his numbers at Tennessee will be crazy. He could come to Tennessee and maybe be in that Heisman race, just because pretty much all of our running backs average 5+ yards per carry. I think that Jalen Wright was averaging close to like 7 yards per carry his final season. At the same time, no, you're not going to get ran into the ground. Now, Dylan Sampson, he kind of did get ran into the ground last year, but the plan is always going to be rotate at least 3 guys. I could see Tennessee rotating maybe 4, maybe all 5 of our guys this year. So that would be a good look, just to show Savion that, hey, look, you're going to come here. You're going to get some great numbers. You're going to be in the headlines and in the media. It's going to be a whole lot of buzz with your name. Obviously, Tennessee is going to put you out there. The fans are going to put you out there, but you're not going to be broken down. That's big for running backs. If you go to Michigan, it's not the same. Michigan is a run-first program, okay? I mean, Tennessee is too, but they're running at very heavy boxes. Tennessee runs at lighter boxes. So your numbers won't look as good and you're going to be broke down. So I just think that from top to bottom, if you're looking at everything, I feel like Tennessee should be his option. And it's also, I think, closer to where he's from. Now, he's probably not going to be a player that talks a lot after his OV. So on Sundays, we come back and we, give our thoughts on the post OV interviews and things like that. Probably won't get one from him, but the insiders should have a pretty good idea of, is he leaning more towards Tennessee? So feeling good going in. I think that we will also feel very good coming out for the number one running back in the country. Now let's come back and let's talk about, where should we go next, y'all? Let's talk about Braden Rouse, 4-star linebacker coming up from Kell High School here in the state of Georgia. Really good size, 6'3", over 210 pounds. He's probably closer to like 220 now. But right now, I think it's probably us in Texas, honestly speaking. Went to Texas last weekend, had a great OV. Now, they were playing catch up to us. I think that they're still playing catch up to us. Tennessee's been on Brandon Rouse longer than anybody else. I love his game just because he's got so much versatility. Stand-up backer, so Michael will, but he could also play Leo, similar to kind of like a Christian Gas. I think he's very similar, or, like a Jaden. Like they're both, or all three of them, tall, long guys that move very well, very fluid athletes. They can play out in space. They can also rush that passer. He plays some offense too at Kill. I think he plays tight end. So he's got some good ball skills, just a very natural and fluid athlete. I think Tennessee comes out of this one landing Braden Rouse. I feel very, very good about this. Coach Inge is doing a brilliant job. We talked about TJ White, coming up last weekend. He's a bigger player, almost like the opposite of what you're seeing with Braden, where Braden, again, he's like a stand-up middle linebacker or Leo hybrid. But I think that TJ White is like a stand-up linebacker or strong side end, maybe even D tackle hybrid, because he's already up to like 240, 250. So Coach Inge just helping out the whole daggum defense with the way that he's going out and finding these very versatile players. I love Tennessee's linebacker talent. I think that our linebackers has probably been the weakest part of our defense over the past since the staff has been up on campus. But they could take a step forward, obviously, this year. But after that, it's going to take a big, big, big step forward with how much talent Tennessee has. We have more like natural linebackers, you know what I'm saying? Like more guys that have really played linebacker for a longer time. And I think maybe at a little bit of a higher level just because of the speed and things like that. So I'm looking forward to this one. That's a huge one. It's one that I think that Tennessee has to close out on, and I feel like we will. Next, let's talk about Hezekiah Harris. So he is a Leo. I think he's a Leo strong side and hybrid, 6'5", 220, probably closer to 230 now. He is committed to Auburn at this point, but he loves Coach Chop. His family loves Coach Chop. The word out there is some of his family members want him to choose Tennessee. I think that if you look at the whole picture with you're going to come in, you know that you're going to put up some good numbers, you're going to be able to stay fresh, but the ultimate thing is about, getting an education, but also going on to that next level. And Tennessee's done probably the best job with the talent that we've had to work with and pushing them to the NFL. Probably out of anybody, especially these last couple of seasons. Tennessee's done a tremendous, tremendous job, especially better than Auburn. Auburn is our main competition at this point. So I think that if he looks at it from that standpoint, why wouldn't you come play for Coach Gardner, for Coach Chop? You know what I'm saying? Like these are guys, we probably have the best. I think I've said this several times, but I think even still, we have the best D-line coaching trio in the whole doggone country. It makes sense. It makes the most sense to come here, get your money, ball out, get to rotate, learn how to play out in space. Also have the opportunity to, play more strong side, which again, I kind of think that he might end up growing into that. But, you can get it done on several different sides. Now, for me, he's more of like a slow twitch guy, which means that he's not going to be as sudden, but he's going to be very powerful. And that's why I say it might be more of a strong tight end, but he's still very, very twitchy. So whenever I say he's not as twitchy, I'm talking about if you look at him next to like a Tristan Gibbons. Tristan Gibbons is very high level twitch, similar to like a James Pierce. But I think for me, I'm looking at him, looking at Hezekiah Harris, I think more maybe like a Tyree West sort of a player. You know what I mean? Like I think he's similar there, which Tyree West is very twitchy, but he's bigger. You know what I'm saying? He's bigger, he's stronger. So just very versatile. And like I said, I think he fits into our system extremely well. And I would expect that his post OV interview is going to be a whole lot of smiles. You'll probably see it written all over his face that he's about to go ahead and flip to our Tennessee Volunteers. All right, so who should the next player be? I want to talk about Craig Tubb because he's the in-state safety. So y'all can see right now, I only have Ole Miss up there. I think that's the main competition. He loved his visit going there last weekend, talked a whole lot about family. Tennessee's all about family. We should be able to hopefully, one up what Ole Miss did. But I think Auburn's also kind of still hanging around. The one thing that I'll say about Craig Tubb, yeah, he's the in-state kid, but I could definitely see him going to Ole Miss. I don't know. It's just a vibe. It's kind of feel like he might not want to stay in-state. Sometimes being the in-state program, it works. It works in that. It works in the opposite way. I guess I should say it doesn't necessarily work for you as well as some of these other players. You know what I'm saying? They could be out of state but don't like the in-state programs. I'm not saying he doesn't like Tennessee. I feel like earlier in this process he loved Tennessee, but I don't know. Did we fall off from talking to him? I'm not quite sure what happened. We had to get back into the mix with him here lately. So we got to finish strong. I know that the staff's going to put their best foot forward, but just like looking at his skill set and all that, very, very good player. I think that he could come in and definitely fight for some starting time or at least for some playing time as a freshman. Coverage skills look, I would say good. It wouldn't be the best cover safety that we're going to be talking about today. But as far as the run support, I think that that's going to look really, really good because he's a bigger, thicker player. He has good straight line speed. You know what I mean? I think him as a blitzer, some of those types of things, he would maybe be a little bit more of a box safety that can also do coverage. Not typically what Tennessee adds, but I think that this will be a huge pickup either way. Definitely not saying that it would be a negative thing if we could add Craig Tutt. I'm just throwing it out there that for me at this point, heading into this visit, I'm not quite sure. I feel like Tennessee's in his top two, but I just feel like at the end of the day, he might end up choosing Ole Miss. All right, let's come back. The next guy that I want to talk about is going to be Moa. So up at the top, listed as an athlete, 6'2", 190 pounds. Right now, it's Michigan and Utah. He's from Utah. So I'm going to go ahead and pull up his clips right here. I want to tell y'all, man, for me, he's probably the best overall safety candidate that's left out of all the OVs, out of all the players that Tennessee's in a good spot with. He plays offense, so he plays wide receiver. He also plays safety for his high school. I see so many natural things with his skill set, mostly on his high school highlight tape. It's offensive stuff, which I think he could do that at a very high level too. But with his frame, understand 6'2", 190. Okay, heading into his senior season. Once he's done with his senior season, once he's coming up on campus, I see him being at 200, maybe over 200 pounds. And, by the time that the season actually starts, he could be carrying 210, 215, maybe 215 plus very, very easily. Like that play there, I talked about it last time. That's a tough cover. So I think that he can cover very well. But I also feel like he's going to hit you. He's a thumper. He's physical. He's just the total package. He could actually, I think, come in and actually fight for a starting spot. For some of these other guys that we've talked about, probably fighting more for being depth pieces. But he's a guy that has that level of skill set. So can we one up Michigan? Which I think he just went to Michigan last weekend. Reading what he's saying, it didn't feel like he was blown away by Michigan. So I don't know. I think that he should be blown away once he comes out of this visit to Knoxville. You know what I'm saying? We have that tendency where as soon as you come up, you're like, man, everything's here. This is perfect. So I think that we could maybe land him. Something that I actually heard Hubs talking about earlier today was he feels like he kind of wishes that Tennessee staff would try to push these players more to pull the trigger. I think that we need to do the same thing, especially this final weekend. Why not, man? Like, don't let these kids leave this visit and just keep thinking and thinking and thinking, which I know that the staff probably won't ever do. That's not how they rock. But man, look, guys like this, I'm not saying be overly pushy, but at least, throw it out there. You know what I'm saying? Like, make the offer. Like, man, we'd really love to have you here or something. Like just throw it out there and see if they bite on it because we need guys like this in the worst way. We all know Tennessee needs safeties that can play from day one. So I think that we've got to be just a little bit more pushy moving forward. All right, so that's Moa, really good player. Obviously, I'm very high on him. I think really out of all these players, Savion Hiter having a 5-star running back, that would be huge. Obviously, I'd be very happy with it. But honestly speaking, out of all the players that we're looking at on this list, Mo is the one that I would be the most happy with if we could land him, just because that would mean, I think, a lot more for this team. All right, now let's go on to the next player. Let's talk about Jowell Combay. So he is teammates with Brandon Rouse at Kill. I think right now it might still be us in UGA unless UGA backed off. If they did, then it's us in South Carolina. But getting him for the final weekend, that's big. Y'all can see that he has a date set. So next month on the 9th, that's when he's going to be telling everybody where he's going. But I think that most of these players will probably be choosing by the end of this month, honestly speaking. So I think that he's a guy that could play safety. He could play some star, but more of a true safety. Also, Moa, I think Moa could also play some star, but I see him as more of a true safety. With Craig Tutt, I see him primarily just being a safety. What does that mean? It means that for me, Jowell, I think that his coverage skills are going to be probably better than Craig Tutt's. I think that he's showing a lot of things. He's taller, he's longer. I think that he might have better hips. I think he looks better in and out of his breaks, things like that. So I would love to be able to add him. He's also physical. I don't think that he's as physical as a Craig Tutt or as Moa, but he's from Georgia. Okay, them Georgia boys are all dogs. They're all football players. I'm not gonna say every single one, but about 99%. So I already know that he can ball. Kills a very good high school program. So I think that ultimately speaking, we end up landing him and his teammate Braden Rouse. And I don't know how many safeties Tennessee wants to add, but I want all of them. Like all three of the guys that's going to be coming up for their OVs, probably starting off at some point today. I would love if we could add every single one of them along with the two that we already have because they're more projects. It's going to take them, especially if they're playing at safety. Now, if you take KJ's playing at maybe star or maybe corner. He could have a chance to play earlier. For the other kid, Thompson, Luke, I think that if he's playing offense, he has a better chance to, see the field earlier. But the whole point is they're projects. We need several guys inside of that room because we're super shorthanded. Bring in as many as you possibly can. And if we can land on all three of these guys, obviously that's huge for this class. All right. So let's move on and let's talk about, I think that we're down to the last player here, Daryl Rivers. So Daryl is a tackle, and y'all can see that he has good size. 6'5", 270. He could definitely get up to 300 prior to the season starting. Probably be up at about 290 by the time he comes up on campus. 280, 290, something like that. But really, really good player. Okay, he's rated as a 3-star. I think right now it's us and Mississippi State primarily, but you got to watch out for Georgia Tech because Georgia Tech, man, I think actually their D-line coaches, it's Coach Simpson, who was P's coach at Buford High School. He's a hell of a coach. But either way, we have to, I think, close out on him because Tennessee needs tackles in the worst way. What's his game look like? Number one, really good size. I think that he's rangy enough that, yeah, he could gain the weight and play at 3 technique or play a 0, play a 1. But he could also play some strong side in where, don't gain too much weight, play it strong side in, come off of the edge. So twitchy guy, he can get after the passer, does a good job with his hands. I think he has really good hands. He has good feet. He uses his leverage properly and sheds blocks, I think, very, very easily, doesn't get moved around. So he has everything that you're looking for. We keep on talking about all the tackles that Tennessee's targeting. They can do both. They can stop the run and rush the passer. The twitch that we're targeting now with our guys, with our tackles, it's different. Now, I'm telling you, it's going to look a lot like this season where you got guys that are pretty much nothing but twitchy players. Bryson Easton, Jackson Moy, David Hobbs. I mean, come on. These guys are going to be pass rush specialists, I feel like, playing a tackle. So we're just trying to add more players like that. And like we keep on touching on, because the coaching staff is so good up front, how do you turn it down? You know what I'm saying? Like, how do you turn this opportunity down? It would only be like with like with the kid Iverson who went to South Florida. If one of these smaller programs is going to make you the guy, where the revenue sharing package with the NIL is just crazy and you can't turn it down, okay, I'm not going to knock you for it, but I think that at the end of the day, Tennessee does a really, really good job. So on Sunday, I would expect that we hear some positive things. Either way, y'all, this is going to be a huge, huge weekend to close things out. And I feel like over these next couple of weeks, we'll have a very good understanding of how this class is going to shape up. Will it be top 10? I think that that's very, very likely. But can we get to top 5? For us to get to top 5, everything has to go perfectly. So P and I might be coming back on Saturday and talking about the players that are going to some different programs and just talking about the OVs in general. All right, so now let's talk about Faizon. Let's talk about where he finished at. This is just with On 3. These aren't the final rankings, but they had Faizon at number 5. Now, with On 3, they didn't. It just kind of felt like everything, not everything, but they had more negative things to say about Faizon than 24/7 Sports did for sure. That guy at 24/7 Sports, he loved Faizon. I didn't find anything as far as their final rankings for this whole deal, but Faizon probably would have been like top 4 for sure, maybe top 3. But top 5's not bad. And take this stuff with a grain of salt. It's not that big of a deal. Like Dia Bell ends up winning, and we'll actually look at these clips here. Dia Bell, y'all, he was one of the things that they said about Faizon was, man, his footwork just didn't look that crisp. I was watching Diabell. His footwork didn't look, it looked worse than Faizon's to me. But this is Faizon on y'all's left, and then that's Diabell on y'all's right. You can see them side by side. Obviously, Faizon as a college prospect, as an NFL prospect, much bigger. I think he's just a lot looser, and the ball flies out of his hand a lot easier. But obviously, they're both going to be very, very good. But this is Faizon's first touchdown pass. I think he threw the football 22 times. So 16 of 22, maybe 18 of 22, one pick, and I want to say either 3 touchdowns or 2 touchdowns. So we're going to see 2 of the touchdowns here. What a second, was this one a touchdown? Yeah, so this is just 2 of the touchdowns. Y'all can see some of these throws from different angles. This one right here was ridiculous. Okay, we're going to see it again from this end zone angle. That is a beautiful football, just to be able to layer it this way. And you can see how the ball flies out of his hand. But watch this guy in the back of the end zone with his hands on top of his head. I think that if you listen to the or if you watch this and if you listen to the actual audio, people are like, ooh, like you could just tell Faizon had a whole lot of oohs and ahs because he's that sort of an athlete. I feel like, yeah, it doesn't really matter where he finishes at with this camp. But once he comes up on campus, the more that I'm watching him, I feel like he just gets better and better. I think that he really might have a very serious opportunity to fight for the starting spot. Maybe not from day one, but at some point in the season in 2026. Similar to what Peyton did, he didn't start straight out the gates. A couple of games in, he got thrown in there and then he just never looked back. If Faizon ever gets to start, I don't think he ever looks back. So if he does see the field and, if he takes over, obviously we'll end up losing Merck and we'll end up losing GMAC. And then we have a very, very short-handed quarterback room. But either way, I feel like Faizon, with this whole thing here, what's the impact just based off of him finishing not number one when he's the number one player in the whole country on 24/7 Sports. On three has him, I think, is like the number 2 or number 3 quarterback, like number 6 player in the country, something just stupid and foolish. But will he drop down with 24/7 Sports? Like I said, I feel like that one analyst really likes Faizon. I feel like they all like Faizon, so he'll probably end up staying up there. And with On Three, I could see them dropping him. You know what I mean? Like they want to drop him. It kind of feels that way. But he still has his senior season left. If he wins another state title, then how are you going to knock a player for coming to these camps and for doing a good job and then going on and having a great senior year and winning when it actually counts on the field with the pads on. So we'll see what happens. Obviously, man, for me, I take the rankings and the ratings and all that stuff really with the grain of salt. For me, out of all the players that I looked at, Faizon was the most impressive. All right, now let's talk about some NIL stuff, y'all. So let's talk about Mizzou in 2024. This is their NIL for all the sports, a total of about $12.4 million. Might have been a little bit more than that just because there's some sports that aren't quite listed here. But either way, you can see how they split up this money. So football, they were $8 million, 64% of their NIL for all sports. Now, that doesn't look like that much money to me. I feel like Tennessee, and don't quote me on this, this is just speculation, but I think Tennessee was probably anywhere from about 12 million to about probably 15 million-ish, right? Maybe a little bit more than 15 million in 2024. So let me show you how things have changed since 2025, right? Now we're talking about starting off in January, $4.6 million. And then look at June, $10 million spent on NIL, for a total of about $25 million, which just in these few months already a lot more, double what they spent all of last year. Why are they doing this? Because like we've talked about, and this is something that I actually heard from some of the players' parents and things like that, these kids are trying to get their deals, and these teams are going to change all these NIL deals. They're front loading them, and they're doing it before July the 1st because on the 1st, NIL go every contract, every NIL contract that goes through NIL go is going to be very, very heavily scrutinized. So we don't feel like some of these big time deals is 6 figures, that's 7 figures, that's coming from the boosters and all that. They're probably not going to fly. This is why I think personally that we could see a lot of our big time targets, all these 5 stars that we're talking about, we could see them coming off of the board before the first. Now, I've also heard from an agent, he said, man, we don't really we're not even too much worried about that. Mostly it's because they feel like it's really not going to end up going through. One of the things that he also talked about was there's going to be more like long-term contracts with these players. So 2 years, 3 years moving forward, which it started to move more that way here recently anyway, but you'll probably see that be the pretty much standard. But I thought that looking at this, it is eye-opening. I have no idea what Tennessee's is, but I would think that if theirs moved up to about 24 million within these few months, maybe Tennessee's moved up there too, even though it doesn't feel like Tennessee did a lot of spending with that winter window or with the spring window. So we'll talk about that here in just a minute. Now let's look at LSU. This is their NIL for their football team. 2022, only $2 million. Then in 2023, they doubled that. And then in 2024, only at $5 million. Like I said, man, I feel like in 2024, Tennessee was probably close to 3 times that, which is mind-blowing because you look at LSU and you think, man, they've got a whole lot of money. That's how they're bringing in players. But really for LSU, the in-state talent is so good and everyone goes there. So they don't really have to do too much of anything. Like that's a pretty much, like that job runs itself. That's why whenever I look at Brian Kelly and I'm seeing like, dog, like, how are y'all not at the top of the SEC, like in the top three? That's where y'all should be every single year. But it just goes to show how, for me, how bad of a coach Brian Kelly actually is. Now, to his credit, at first with NIL, he said, you know what, I'm not going to be doing this pay for play thing. I'm not going to be held hostage by these players. He was saying that at first. He knows that he ain't gonna have a whole lot of time in Baton Rouge just because of how their records have been looking. So he said, man, like, let me go out and start talking to some of these billionaire boosters and stuff, which is what they did. So in 2025, all the way up to the end of this month, they've now allocated $13 million just to our football program. And let me also be very, very clear, because I think that I might have misspoke. When on the previous slide, whenever I said Tennessee was at about 12 to 15 million, I meant just for our football team, not for the whole deal, just for the football team. But either way, $13 million now that they're going to be allocated. So what does this tell y'all? Think back to that winter window when Josh Thompson, that guard, I think he was from like Northwestern or from one of those schools, that he loved Tennessee, came up on that visit. He was about to choose Tennessee. LSU gets him to go visit there, like in the final hour. They offer him a whole bunch of money. That was what we said. We was like, it had to be money. And then he came back and he asked Tennessee, could y'all match it? We was like, no, we're not going to match it. This is how they were able to do that. Also, we could talk about guys like Tristan Keys. We know that Tristan Keys, same thing, love Tennessee, goes and visits LSU, and he pulls the trigger there. So they've got a lot more money to mess around with now, and that's why so many players have started to choose them. Now, this is my speculation, because as we talked about, Tennessee in the winter window didn't spend a whole bunch of money. Now, we did, of course, go out and we got Wendell Moy and also Pendleton. So instead of just taking in one guard, we're able to actually add two. So it might have actually worked out better for Tennessee, even though I think that Josh Thompson was the best overall guard in the transfer portal. I think we ended up doing a very, very good job there. But I think that, also looking at this spring window, didn't do a whole lot, right? Like, obviously, we had to hold on to some of the players on our team. We let some players go. But I think that we have a lot of money to mess around with for the 2026 class, which is why we're looking at, 5, 6, 5 stars coming in this class. I'm hoping that that is the case. Again, going back to what I just talked about over these next couple of weeks, everything's being, they're pushing all this money onto the table. I think that we'll see, Tennessee, if we are going to land all these 5 stars, we should start to see them pulling the trigger sooner rather than later. So those are my thoughts, man. I think that Tennessee's probably got somewhere around, I'm gonna call it about close to probably 20 million just for our football team that we can mess around with at this point. So this class should be really stinking good. Either way, those are just my thoughts. Please share yours with me down in the comment section. And as always, please do make sure to like and subscribe to the channel. We'll see y'all tomorrow. Thanks. Peace. Thanks for watching. And please make sure to like and subscribe to the channel, because that keeps us growing inside of the YouTube algorithm. And if you did like this video, here's another one that you might also enjoy. Thank you, thank you, thank you. We'll see you on the next one. Peace.